he awoke with a belly full of salt, naked and half buried in white sand amidst the storm's detritus. Seagulls cried overhead, their shadows wheeling across the rippled beach. Cramps spasming his gut, he groaned and slowly rolled over. There were more bodies on the beach, he saw, and wreckage. Chunks and rafts of fast-melting ice rustled in the shallows. Crabs scuttled in their thousands. The huge man lifted himself to his hands and knees, and then vomited bitter fluids onto the sands. Pounding throbs racked his head, fierce enough to leave him half blind, and it was some time before he finally rocked back to sit up and glare once more at the scene around him. A shore where no shore belonged. On the night before, mountains of ice rising up from the depths, one, the largest of them all, reaching the surface directly beneath the fast floating Macross city, breaking it apart as if it were a raft of sticks. Macross histories recounted nothing remotely like the devastation he had seen wrought. Sudden and virtually absolute annihilation of a city that was home to 20,000. Disbelief still tormented him, as if his own memories held impossible images, the conjuring of a fevered brain. But he knew he had imagined nothing. He had but witnessed, and, somehow, survived. The sun was warm, but not hot. The sky overhead was milky white rather than blue, and the seagulls he now saw were something else entirely, reptilian, pale-winged. He staggered to his feet. The headache was fading, but shivers now swept through him, and his thirst was a raging demon trying to claw at his throat. The cries of the flying lizards changed pitch, and he swung to face inland. 3 creatures had appeared, clambering through the pallid tufts of grass above the tide line. No higher than his hip, black-skinned, hairless, perfectly round heads and pointed ears. Baccaral. He recalled them from his youth, when the Macross trading ship had returned from Namil. But these seemed to be muscle-bound versions, at least twice as heavy as the pets the merchants had brought back to the floating city. They made directly for him. He looked round for something to use as a weapon, and found a piece of driftwood that would serve as a club. Hefting it, he waited as the Baccaral drew closer. They halted, yellow-shot eyes staring up at him. Then the middle one gestured. Come. There was no doubting the meaning of that all-too-human beckoning. The man scanned the strand again. None of the bodies he could see were moving, and the crabs were feeding unopposed. He stared up once more at the strange sky, then stepped towards the 3 creatures. They backed away and led him up to the grassy verge. Those grasses were like nothing he had ever seen before, long tubular triangles, razor-edged, as he discovered once he passed through them when he found his low legs crisscrossed with cuts. Beyond, a level plain stretched inland, bearing only the occasional tuft of the same grass. The ground in between was salt-crusted and barren. A few chunks of stone dotted the plain, no two alike, and all oddly angular, unweathered. In the distance stood a lone tent. The Baccaral guided him towards it. As they drew near, he saw threads of smoke drifting out from the peak and the slitted flap that marked the doorway. His escort halted, and another wave directed him to the entrance. Shrugging, he crouched and crawled inside. In the dim light sat a shrouded figure, a hood disguising its features. A brazier was before it, from which heady fumes drifted. Beside the entrance stood a crystal bottle, some dried fruit, and a loaf of dark bread.
The bottle holds a spring of water,
the figure rasped in the Mekros tongue.
Please take time to recover from your ordeal.
He grunted his thanks and quickly took the bottle. First, blissfully slaked, he reached for the bread. I thank you, stranger, he rumbled, then shook his head. That smoke makes you swim before my eyes. A hacking cough that might have been laughter, then something resembling a shrug.
Better than drowning. Alas, it eases my pain. I shall not keep you long. You are Wivel, the sword maker.
The man started, and his broad brow knotted. I am Wivel, of the third Mekros city, which is now no more.
A tragic event. You are the lone survivor. Through my own efforts, though it much strained my powers to intervene.
What place is this?
Nowhere. In the heart of nowhere. A fragment, prone to wander. I give it what life I can imagine, conjured from memories of my home. My strength returns, although the agony of my broken body does not abate. Yet, listen, I have talked and not coughed. That is something.
A mangled hand appeared from a ragged sleeve and scattered seeds onto the brazier's coals. They spat and popped, and the smoke thickened. Who are you? Wivel demanded.
A fallen god who has need of your skills. I have prepared for your coming. Wivel, a place of dwelling, a forge, all the raw materials you will need. Clothes, food, water, and 3 devoted servants, whom you have already met.
The Baka Ral? Wivel snorted. What can?
Not Baka Ral, mortal, although perhaps they once were. These are Naxx. I have named them Rind, Mape, and Pule. They are of jagged fashioning, capable of learning all that you require of them.
Wivel made to rise. I thank you for the salvation, fallen one, but I shall take my leave of you. I would return to my own world.
You do not understand, Wivel,
the figure hissed.
You will do as I say here, or you will find yourself begging for death. I now own you, sword maker. You are my slave, and I am your master. The Mekros own slaves, yes. Hapless souls stolen from island villages and such on your raids. The notion is therefore familiar to you. Do not despair, however, for once you have completed what I ask of you, you shall be free to leave.
Wivel still held the club, the heavy wood cradled on his lap. He considered. A cough, then laughter, then more coughing, during which the god raised a staying hand. When the hacking was done, he said,
I advise you to attempt nothing untoward, Wivel. I have plucked you from the seas for this purpose. Have you lost all honor? Oblige me in this, for you would deeply regret my wrath.
What would you have me do?
Better. What would I have you do, Wivel? Why? Only what you do best. Make me a sword.
Wivel grunted. That is all? The figure leaned forward.
Ah, well, what I have in mind is a very particular sword.